She did everything in her power to show him that she loved him no matter what. It was a lot of red flags. I just don't understand. I just want to know why. Why would you take my sister from us? Like, why? She never leave my niece, no matter what. She never leave my mama, no matter what.
I've covered numerous true crime stories, cases marked by heartbreak, betrayal, and violence. But there's one story that stayed with me longer than I ever expected. It's the story of Dishai Stevenson, a woman who seemed to have it all, until her life was cut short in a way no one could have imagined. On the morning of October 25, 2023, Dishai's body was found on the side of a lonely road in southeast Dallas. She'd been shot in the chest at close range and left to die alone. From the moment I read those first reports, I couldn't shake the question, how does a woman who gave so much love, money, loyalty, end up murdered, allegedly at the hands of the man she married? At first glance, it looked like a tragic case of domestic violence, a marriage turned deadly. But as I dug deeper, I found signs that this was more than just a fight between husband and wife. There were whispers of jealousy over money, rumors of other people involved, and clues suggesting that Dishai may have been keeping secrets of her own. The more I uncovered, the clearer it became that this wasn't a simple story of a jealous husband snapping in a moment of rage. There were layers to Dishai's life that no one, not even her family, fully understood. And somewhere hidden in those layers was a plot twist that would leave even seasoned investigators stunned. So, I have to ask you, do you believe love can blind us to danger? And if the person you trust the most turns on you, would you ever see it coming? Share your thoughts below. Because tonight, I'm going to tell you the story of Dishai Stevenson. And I promise you, it's not the story you think it is. When I first heard Dishai Stevenson's name, I pictured another statistic, a woman lost to violence, her story reduced to a few tragic headlines. But as I dug into who she was, I realized Dishai's life was anything but ordinary. Dishai was a woman who refused to stay small. She was bold, magnetic, a presence you couldn't ignore. By her early 30s, she'd launched a successful clothing brand in Dallas. She'd built a reputation as a talented tax preparer, helping friends, family, even strangers file returns when times were tight. People trusted her because she was the kind of woman who always seemed to have a solution. But more than anything else, Dishai was a mother. Her daughter, just 16, was the center of her world. And when Dishai's mother suffered a devastating medical crisis that left her partially paralyzed, Dishai stepped in as her caregiver, never complaining, never giving up. Friends described her as loving, generous, and ambitious. She poured herself into caring for others, as though saving everyone else might somehow keep her own world from falling apart. And yet, even as she thrived in business and family life, shadows were looming behind her smile. At first, they were only whispers, small things, said quietly by people who loved her. A sudden tension in her voice when someone asked about her marriage. Bruises explained away by clumsy accidents. Long hours away from home that Dishai never fully accounted for. Some friends believed she was simply working herself too hard. Others suspected something more sinister. But no one, not even those closest to her, could have predicted what lay beneath the surface of Dishai's seemingly perfect life. Because as I kept digging, I stumbled across something I didn't expect. Records, messages, and eventually, testimony from people who claimed that Dishai wasn't just a victim. They claimed she might have been keeping secrets of her own. Secrets that might have led someone to believe that killing her was the only way to keep those secrets buried forever. So, who was Dishai Stevenson? A devoted mother? A brilliant entrepreneur? Or a woman caught up in a web far more dangerous than anyone imagined? As we move deeper into her story, you'll have to decide for yourself. To understand how Dishai's story ended, you have to start at the beginning, with the man who would become her husband, and, according to police, her killer. Michael Smith. Dishai met Michael through mutual friends years before any of this tragedy unfolded. She was full of life, always chasing her next big idea. Michael, on the other hand, was quieter, charismatic in his own way, but carrying a weight he didn't always show. Michael had a past, and that past included time behind bars. Details of Michael's record are patchy in official documents. But what's clear is that he served time for charges that, according to people close to Dishai, involved theft and possible fraud. Some say there were whispers of more violent incidents, but no solid evidence ever surfaced in the public record. But here's the thing about Dishai. She believed in second chances. Maybe because she'd been raised to see the good in people, even when it wasn't obvious. Or maybe because she believed love could transform a person. While Michael was incarcerated, Dishai wrote him letters. She took phone calls late into the night, paying those expensive prison fees without complaint. She even sent him money for his commissary account, sometimes hundreds of dollars at a time. Family members said she'd work extra hours at her tax business just to keep him comfortable on the inside. And when Michael was released, Dishai didn't hesitate. She opened her heart and her wallet. She helped him get back on his feet, bought him clothes, paid deposits for apartments, and eventually, she funded their wedding. There are photos of their wedding day. Dishai in a dazzling white dress, her smile bright enough to light up the entire frame. Michael stands beside her, his arm around her waist, his eyes searching her face as though she's the answer to a question he's been asking for years. But love stories, they're rarely as simple as they look in pictures. Dishai's sister, Jasmine, told investigators something that stayed lodged in my mind ever since. She said, "My sister loved hard. She wanted to fix people. But Michael, he didn't want to be fixed. He wanted control." Friends started noticing changes. Michael grew distant, sometimes sullen. He resented the fact that Dishai was the primary breadwinner. He questioned how she spent her money and her time. There were arguments, doors slamming, silent dinners where no one spoke a word. One close friend said, "It was like Michael felt smaller because Dishai was shining so bright. He couldn't handle how people admired her. He wanted to be the king, but he didn't want to build the kingdom." It's easy to look back and see the signs. But when you're in it, love has a way of making excuses for the very things that should send you running. Dishai kept hoping Michael would change, that he'd appreciate how fiercely she stood by him, that the man she believed she married was still in there, somewhere. But what if Michael wasn't the only one hiding things? Because as investigators continued on this case, a few people said something unexpected, that while Michael was growing suspicious and possessive, Dishai herself had begun keeping secrets. Phone calls she'd taken in another room, nights when she claimed to be working late, but left no paper trail of where she'd been. Cryptic social media posts hinting at stress and betrayal. Was Dishai trapped in an abusive marriage and quietly planning an escape? Or was there something else going on, something that might have given Michael a reason to feel threatened enough to end her life? I don't have all the answers, but I do know this. In relationships built on secrets, even love can become deadly. And it leaves me asking, is love enough when respect and trust are missing? Tell me your thoughts below. I've always believed that even the darkest crimes leave a trail of warnings behind them. Little cracks in the surface that hint at the storm about to break. And as I kept pulling at the threads of Dishai Stevenson's life, I started seeing those cracks everywhere. To the outside world, Dishai looked unstoppable, a woman running her own business, raising her daughter, and caring for her mother. But behind closed doors, things were shifting. People close to her said Michael became jealous, not just of the money Dishai earned, but the respect she commanded. She had clients who trusted her with their finances, friends who admired her ambition, even strangers who followed her clothing brand online. And for some men, that kind of power in a woman feels like a threat. Michael started asking questions, constant questions, about who she was texting, where she was going, why she was spending so much time at work. He'd scroll through her social media, dissecting every like, every comment. One friend said he'd act like he was joking, saying Dishai was probably out there meeting some rich guy who'd take her away. But there was this look in his eyes, like it wasn't a joke at all. And the jealousy didn't stop with words. Several people noticed how Michael started to isolate her. He'd show up unexpectedly at her workplace. He'd insist on driving her places, even if it made her late. He'd tell her friends that Dishai was too busy for get-togethers, until eventually, the invitations stopped coming. It's a pattern I've seen before. Control disguised as love. Possessiveness dressed up as protection. And yet, there were still moments when things seemed normal. Family gatherings where Michael was charming, attentive, smiling beside Dishai like nothing was wrong. It's one of the cruelest tricks abuse can play. The good days make you question whether the bad days were really that bad. They convince you to stay, to wait it out, to hope for change. But not everyone was fooled. Dishai's sister Jasmine said, I started noticing bruises, little ones, on her arms. She'd brush them off, say she bumped into the dresser, or slipped in the bathroom. But it happened too often to be an accident. Another friend recalled hearing Michael raise his voice, once so loudly the neighbors called to check on Dishai. But when anyone tried to intervene, Dishai would wave them off. "We're just going through stuff," she'd say. "We'll work it out." And yet, even as these warning signs multiplied, Dishai was hiding something else, something no one could quite put their finger on. Friends began to notice Dishai keeping secrets of her own, calls she took late at night, messages she'd delete before anyone could see them, nights she didn't come home, claiming she was working, but offering no details. One source who knew her well said, "I honestly think Dishai was planning something. Maybe she was getting ready to leave Michael. Or maybe there was someone else. It makes me wonder, did Michael discover something he wasn't supposed to know? Or was the truth even more complicated than anyone realizes?" All I know is this: when love turns into control, the question stops being whether a relationship can be saved and becomes whether someone's life might be in danger. And it leaves me asking you again, have you ever seen warning signs in a friend's relationship but didn't know how to help? Let's talk about it below. Sometimes, the moments before a tragedy feel strangely ordinary. A routine phone call, a drive across town, a few minutes where life still feels normal, right before everything changes forever. That's how the night of October 24th, 2023, began for Dishai Stevenson. Around 7 p.m., Dishai was finishing up work. She'd been stressed in the days leading up to that night, juggling her business, her daughter, and, according to friends, tensions at home. At 8:21 p.m., her daughter tried to call her. No answer. That was unusual. Dishai was never out of reach, especially not from her child. Between 8:30 and 9 p.m., Dishai's phone pinged in the area of Pleasant Village Apartments, a place connected to Michael Smith's family. Police would later confirm that's where Michael's father lived. Security cameras captured Dishai's car arriving alone. She parked, sat inside for a while. Then another vehicle arrived, Michael's. For a few minutes, Dishai stayed in her car. Her face was lit by the glow of her phone screen. Some say she looked nervous, others say she was determined. And then, around 9:15 p.m., she stepped out and got into Michael's car. What happened next remains one of the biggest mysteries in this entire case. The car didn't move right away. It just sat there, idling, for nearly 15 minutes. Surveillance footage is too grainy to capture details inside. But one officer later said, it looked like a disturbance was happening inside the vehicle. One source close to the investigation said it appeared there was movement and sudden jolts inside the car, as if people were struggling or arguing. At 9:29 p.m., the car finally drove away. And that was the last time Dishai Stevenson was seen alive. From there, the timeline grows quiet. Dishai's daughter kept calling her mother's phone into the night, but there was never another answer. Meanwhile, Michael returned to his own home. And according to law enforcement sources, when he pulled into his driveway, there were visible blood stains in the front seat of his vehicle. And yet, he didn't call for help. He didn't go to the police. He went home and acted as if nothing had happened. The next morning, around 7:30 a.m., a passing driver spotted what he first thought was a pile of clothing on the side of Murdoch Road in southeast Dallas. He pulled over, and what he found instead was Dishai's body. She'd been shot in the chest at close range, left alone on the cold ground. Emergency calls poured in. I think there's a body here on the side of the road." By the time officers arrived, there was nothing anyone could do. Dishai Stevenson was pronounced dead at the scene. As word spread, Dishai's family rushed to the scene. Her daughter sobbed, unable to comprehend how the mother who'd answered every phone call, every text, could suddenly be gone. And yet, even as police began processing the scene, a deeper question was forming. Why would Dishai get into Michael's car at all, especially if things between them were as dangerous as friends and family suspected? Was she trying to reason with him one last time? Was there something he'd threatened to reveal? Or was there someone else involved, a third party pulling strings behind the scenes? Because as the investigation continued, detectives would find evidence suggesting that the night of October 24th might not have been just the tragic climax of a violent marriage, but part of something even bigger and far more dangerous than anyone suspected. Why would a woman enter the car of a man she may have feared, Did she hope to fix things one last time? Or was she caught up in secrets none of us yet fully understand? Share your thoughts below. I've covered enough cases to know that the hours immediately following a murder are chaos, a blur of flashing lights, shocked faces, and questions no one can yet answer. But in Dishai Stevenson's case, answers began coming faster than anyone expected. While detectives were still processing the scene where Dishai's body was found, her family wasn't sitting idly by. Dishai's sister Jasmine, devastated but determined, started calling around friends, Dishai's clients, anyone who might know where she'd been that night. And by mid-morning, they tracked Dishai's car to the Pleasant Village apartments, the same place connected to Michael Smith's family. Police responded quickly, knowing this wasn't just a random shooting. They reviewed surveillance footage and confirmed that Dishai and Michael had arrived separately, then left together in Michael's car. That was the first red flag. Detectives visited Michael's home later that day, and what they found inside his vehicle changed everything. There was visible blood in the front passenger seat, streaks that suggested a struggle, and wedged under the seat was a single, spent bullet casing. But that wasn't all. Officers recovered a woman's sandal. It matched the pair Dishai had been wearing the last time anyone saw her alive. And inside the house, the discoveries kept piling up. Detectives found multiple firearms, handguns, a rifle, and ammunition. Enough to make them question what Michael Smith might have been planning. One investigator said, the way those guns were stored, it wasn't random. It felt like someone ready for a confrontation. And yet, even with all this evidence piling up, Michael Smith wasn't at home. He was at a barber shop across town, sitting in a chair, getting his hair cut, as if nothing at all had happened. When officers arrived to arrest him, witnesses said Michael barely reacted. He stood up calmly, put his hands behind his back, and said nothing. Police took him into custody and charged him with murder. His bond was set at $1 million. But for detectives, this wasn't just a case of catching the suspect. The evidence told them one thing very clearly. This wasn't random. It was intimate, personal, and possibly planned. Because the more I've learned about this case, the more I'm convinced there's a bigger story hidden in the shadows. Neighbors claimed they saw unfamiliar cars in the parking lot that night. A few people said they heard Michael arguing on the phone days before the murder, shouting about money, betrayal, and someone taking things too far. Was this purely about Michael's jealousy and control? Or was Dishai caught in something bigger, something dangerous enough to make her a target, even beyond her troubled marriage? I don't have all the answers, but I know one thing. When a woman is killed by someone who claimed to love her, the question is never just who pulled the trigger. The real question is why. And the truth about why Dishai Stevenson died might still be waiting to be uncovered. Do you think Michael acted alone, or could someone else have been involved? Share your thoughts below. There's a certain kind of silence that follows a violent death. It's not the absence of sound. It's the heaviness of grief pressing down on every breath, every heartbeat, every word left unsaid. For the Stevenson family, that silence began the moment police told them that Dishai was gone. Dishai's sister, Jasmine, in the days after the murder. Her eyes were swollen from crying, her voice hoarse but strong. She wanted people to know who her sister really was, and how much she meant to everyone who loved her. Jasmine told investigators, "My sister was the one holding everything together. She was a mom, a businesswoman. She was my best friend. She kept our family running. And now she's gone." For Dishai's daughter, life has become a world without the woman who was her anchor. A 16-year-old girl, robbed of the mother who cheered for her at basketball games, who stayed up late helping with homework, who whispered encouragement into her ear when life felt too hard. One family friend said that Dishai's daughter still calls her mother's phone, just to hear her voicemail, as if somehow her mother might pick up one last time. Dishai's mother, partially paralyzed after a medical crisis years ago, has been left without the daughter who bathed her, fed her, managed her medications, and kept her spirits alive. Jasmine told investigators, "My mother keeps asking me if Dishai is coming back. I don't know how to answer her. I don't know how to tell her the truth." The funeral was a sea of faces, many of them streaming tears. Friends from her tax business, clients from her clothing brand, neighbors, church members, all gathered to mourn a woman who meant so much to so many. Jasmine spoke through tears. And there was one line that pierced right through the silence. Asterisk, the hardest part, Jasmine said, is explaining to my niece that love should never hurt. Because how do you explain to a child that sometimes the person you love the most is also the person who becomes your greatest danger? Even now, months later, the trauma clings to the Stevenson family like a shadow. Jasmine told investigators she wakes up in the middle of the night, reaching for her phone, hoping for a text from Dishai, a sign that somehow this has all been a terrible mistake. And yet, in their grief, there's another truth they can't ignore. They've started to wonder if Dishai's murder was more complicated than it appears. Jasmine confided to investigators that strange calls have come in since her sister's death. Calls from blocked numbers. People asking questions about Dishai's business dealings. Hints that maybe, just maybe, there's more to this story than anyone realizes. For the Stevenson family, justice isn't just about Michael Smith standing trial. It's about finding the full truth of why their daughter, sister, and mother was taken from them. Because without those answers, the silence will never truly end. Stories like Dishai Stevenson's don't simply end because an arrest is made. In fact, in many ways, that's when the real questions begin. Today, Michael Smith remains behind bars. He's being held on a $1 million bond, charged with the murder of the woman he once promised to love and protect. As of now, no official trial date has been set. Court records show that his attorneys have been negotiating with prosecutors, exploring whether this case will go before a jury or end in a plea deal. I've sat in courtrooms where families pray for a trial because they need the full story told in public. I've also seen families who can't bear the idea of sitting through graphic testimony or seeing evidence photos they'll never be able to forget. And so the Stevenson family waits. Each day a reminder that justice moves slowly, and sometimes not at all. Jasmine told investigators that she wants answers, not just for herself, but for Dishai's daughter. She said, "My niece deserves to know exactly what happened to her mother. I want her to grow up strong. I want her to know that even when people hurt you, you keep fighting for what's right." For now, all anyone can do is wait. Wait for Michael Smith to have his day in court. Wait to hear the evidence laid bare. Wait to see if justice for Dishai Stevenson will finally arrive. And as we wait, one question echoes louder than all the rest. If love can turn deadly, how do we ever truly know the people we let into our hearts? Do you believe justice will be served in Dishai's case? Or is there more to this story waiting to be uncovered? Share your thoughts below. As I've told Dishai Stevenson's story, one thought has stayed with me more than any other. Strength isn't always enough. Dishai was strong. She was successful. She was a mother, a daughter, a woman who wanted to build a better life for everyone around her. And yet, even the strongest women can become trapped in silence, trapped in a cycle of control, fear, and secrets. It's easy for the rest of us to wonder why someone doesn't just leave. But the truth is, love can blind us to danger. Loyalty can tie us to people who hurt us. And fear can keep us frozen until it's too late. If you or someone you know is in an abusive relationship, please know there is help out there. There are people waiting to listen, to believe you, and to help you find your way out. Dishai's story deserves to be remembered, not just as a tragedy, but as a reminder that silence can be deadly, and that we all have a part to play in protecting each other. Thank you for staying with me through Dishai Stevenson's story. Stories like hers deserve to be told and remembered because they remind us how easily tragedy can hide behind a perfect smile. If you found this story important, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more true crime stories that deserve to be heard. Until next time, stay safe and take care of each other.